All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get started here. It's 4:30. Good evening. It's 4:30. Welcome to the Gary Sansing Public Forum, December 2nd, 2021, 4:30. Please turn your cell phones to the vibrate, silence, or off setting. The Gary Sansing Public Forum is intended for matters not included on the agenda for the upcoming Board of County Commissioners meeting. Citizens wishing to address items on the agenda should sign up to speak to such item at the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. Speakers shall refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, protests, or other conduct which interferes with the orderly conduct of the Gary Sansing Public Forum meeting. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairman to allow sufficient time for all speakers. At the chairman's discretion, the public forum may end 5 minutes prior to the scheduled start of the upcoming Board of County Commissioners meeting in order to allow for our meeting to commence on time. And we do have a number of speakers. We're going to go right into the speakers. And the first speaker this evening is Mr. Keith Alterek. Just please come to the mic. You'll be recognized. State your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Keith Alterek. I have some paperwork I'd like to.
Sure, if you can hand it to one of the staff members, they'll go ahead and distribute it. Thank you, sir.
There's 2 sheets for each person here.
And go ahead, because your time's running.
Okay. Essentially, my name is Keith Alterek. I live at 5018 West Fairfield Drive in District 2. The property next door to me, which is 2 acres, was bought by an investor. I was going to buy the property originally, and at the last minute, the previous owner sold it to this gentleman, and I used to help the neighbor to take care of it, mow it, and whatnot. Anyway, basically, there's a fence that's been there since 1956, and it's in the photograph there.
Yep.
You can see that it's an old-style fence, and it's running through the center of a 50-year-old tree. And there's a whole row of 50-year-old trees that are about approximately 4 or 5 feet apart all the way down. Anyway, he hired a surveyor, and the surveyor put a mark in the middle of the drive of my house, which goes to the back, and it's marked there in yellow.
Yes, sir, I see it.
As soon as that happened, you know, as soon as they came over, because they came to my house like 4 times, and they just walked into my backyard and without asking me, and then they put the markers in the back of the property, in the front of the property, basically taking about 15 feet of my property. So being a lifelong builder, I've been a builder for 40 years, I measured out my property, and I saw that it's wrong. I called the new owner, and I told him about it. He told me that you know, he wasn't gonna mess with the fence. I said, look, I just assume just settle this between us rather than have to do it
Sure.
another way. And he said, yeah, I'm not gonna mess with the fence or the trees. Recently, I called him again, and he said that he's gonna take the trees and the fence down. I don't know what power you guys have over this stuff or whatever, but what I do know is that I was never notified, and the guy lied to me multiple times about the fact that I think he stalled me so that he could get his permit.
Sure.
You know, like I said, I've been pulling permits my whole life, and he didn't tell me the truth, and then he decided to tell me the truth when I kind of pressured him. So now where I'm at is that I won't be able to access my backyard, not even with a car, if he takes that fence down and those trees and part of my driveway that goes to my backyard. I have a shop back there and whatnot, like a wood shop, and you know, like I said, the fence has been there since the beginning. The guy I bought it from and the neighbor that I used to have told me that the fence was the line. And when I measure it out, according to the measurements that I have on my property with my plot plan, the fence is the line.
Okay. Well, it appears, and Allison is our county attorney, it appears to me that this is an issue between 2 private property owners. I don't necessarily know that this is the correct forum. I don't necessarily know that we have a play in this. Allison, is there anything that we can do for this gentleman, in your opinion?
Unless there's something related to the trees that's covered by our Tree Act, or unless there's something related to the fence permit, but exactly, this is a private property
Private matter.
dispute between neighbors, and there's not anything that, other than those 2 issues I mentioned, I don't think that we have a involvement.
And I understand your frustration. Your time has expired. We do have a number of speakers, but I would ask that you get with Tim Day. He's sitting right over there in the brown jacket. Tim, would you get with him and see if there's any code enforcement remedy we might have here, or maybe help him out from here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah, Doug, you're recognized.
Also, my intern, Connor, is standing there in the back. Everything that was just said is accurate. It's a civil matter between two property owners, but we can help you with some understanding. I mean, you're a builder, so you probably already have a pretty good understanding, but if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to help you out with what that process looks like.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker this evening is going to be Michael Kimbrell.
Good evening, Commissioners.
evening.
Michael Kimbrell, 6200 East Shore Drive. Before I speak, I'd like to just say it's always an honor to speak at a forum named after a good friend of mine, Gary Sansing. I am here tonight to speak as an individual to all of y'all, hoping that y'all have been paying attention to the Homeless Reduction Task Force and the work that we've been doing with the city. And hopefully y'all have learned from some of the mistakes that we've made and y'all don't repeat some of those mistakes that the city's made. I can elaborate on that by saying that I personally think that it was a horrible idea that after 2 months of meetings, allocating $3 million to a newly formed task force that was still trying to collect data to decide how to spend $3 million. I think that was a horrible idea. It has, in my opinion, put us back 6 months. That said, it is still a very important subject that I hope y'all all take very serious, I hope that y'all all reach out to all affected parties. So like for me, I expect to see the good, the bad, and the ugly at the table. I want to hear from the people that are our opposition because that makes our plan stronger. I also would like to, just openly let all of y'all know that I, in my organization, has no desire to ask any of y'all for money. I am against asking for federal tax dollars. So when these subjects come to y'all and people start whispering in y'all's ears and lobbying, know that I'm here to give y'all advice that is unbiased, that I have no dog in that fight. So I will be very honest with you. I will not be, trying to lobby to get any kind of money or funding. I'm here for what's best for our community. So thank y'all for y'all's time, and please let's move forward on coming up with solutions to our homeless situation.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks for what you do. Thanks for what you do in the community. I appreciate that.
Michael, and thanks. I was at Manna Food today on a panel with the mayor and with Caleb and with others from the homeless task force, and it was a great conversation with the LEAP group today. And so I think that there are going to be some opportunities for collaboration and to exclude past practices that have just not performed. So thank you so much.
Walter Arrington. Good evening. Thanks for being here. You're recognized.
Good evening. My name's Walter Arrington. I live at 1825 Bainbridge Avenue. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. What I'm here tonight to speak on is a private citizen and as a homeless advocate. Like Michael, I'm passionate about our homeless population here in Escambia County, and I do say Escambia County because I believe that this is a regional issue that needs to be addressed in a regional way, and so I do believe that that's going to take a partnership between both the county and the city, or at least having an overreaching plan to address these issues, as well as somebody who comes at this purely from an advocacy standpoint. I do not plan on asking for any money from the county or the city, and I'm not employed by anybody who's asking for money, and don't have any of those affiliations. So, I just want to implore this board. Let's look at some of the evidence-based best practices that are out there that have been shown through peer-reviewed studies to affect change in a community. I feel like we've been doing some of the same stuff for decades now. And, let's do something new, let's do something different, but let's, build out the infrastructure to address the systemic issues that do exist. I'm not advocating for a free ride for anybody, but what we've got right now is it's a mess. And we've got an explosion of homelessness in this area. I just feel with a lot of the funding coming down the pipe and stuff that's already there, we have an opportunity right now to address this issue in a meaningful way that can really change a lot of people's lives. And I know I've spoken to some of y'all individually, and I know what change is possible, and I just really am very hopeful that change can be accomplished with all of us working together and learning from past mistakes and moving forward to make some good decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. I appreciate you taking time to speak with me and forward that information that you sent. I've got about halfway through it, and just appreciate what you're doing, and we appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mike.
Walter, thanks, and you always give me good information, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
you, Commissioner.
Jeff, just
Yeah.
for the record.
Yeah.
And so we can be, and Walter, you can sit down. I mean, it doesn't require a response. That before Stephen and I were elected, there was no money spent in really human services. And so homelessness is a systemic end of lack of education, poverty, and not jobs. The things that we do in our summer youth programs, the things that we do in our intern programs, the things that we do to build up through our COVID response with mortgage assistance is the things that we are doing to address homelessness.
Right.
And so, I mean, it is a systemic problem of jail or people being incarcerated and putting out. But this board, and we appreciate the city doing task force and those things, although we have not been out waving a banner, we have actually been funding programs to prevent homelessness
right.
well beyond any of COVID or response or when it became popular. So I just want to be on the record for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to say to me that although I support temporary encampments and those things where necessary, a temporary solution to a permanent problem is not the end result of what we're looking for. And so I don't support moving, candidly, moving an encampment from underneath the bridge to moving it to anywhere within any other neighborhood.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that that's on the record.
Yep. You're preaching to the choir. I agree with you 100%. Got to solve the problem there. All right. Next up, Mike Kilmer. You're recognized. Thank you.
Hey, Mike Kilmer. Good to see you guys.
Good evening. Welcome.
What I've been wanting to say to y'all for a while is, not long ago, I just blundered something in my role as president of Historic Brownsville Community. And as I was laying on the floor in the middle of the night, not sleeping, begging God for guidance and forgiveness, I thought about Lumen and Doug, my friends on this commission. I thought, I bet those guys have done this before. The sun came up before I got to sleep. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being stubborn enough to keep doing this. All of you. I really appreciate it. It's got to be a hard job. I would like to, since homelessness is coming up, and Michael Kimbrell is one of my heroes, I want to say that I don't think we're ever going to eradicate homelessness. And I mean, Jesus was homeless, right? Homeless people are part of human existence and a part of it that we need. So I hope you guys remember that. I think you know it, and will support them. And thank you for what you're doing in Brownsville. It's being transformational. It's going to be amazing. When we have 2 lanes of traffic on Cervantes Street, my kids are going to be able to, ride their bikes around the neighborhood. Their mother will let them do it. Great. What I came to speak about here today is working with county staff for the past almost 20 years, so many great people. Clara Long, seemed like we were kids when I was first getting a grant from her. Sherry Duffy, Horace Jones, Glenn with the trees. Just, there's so many great people, right? David Forte and Colby, the engineers, and Michael Rhodes. I love him doing the parks, and Leroy Williams. But I feel like I see them being scared and tentative, and getting ready to get put on the hot seat out here in front of the public. And I'd love to see, like, looking forward with, you know, what's Escambia County going to look like in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like a culture where I think sometimes it's like the county staff are, you guys are, you know, kind of speak like you're the bosses of the county staff, and they're scared, and it's not resilient. They're not like inspired. Like over the years, they're just like, oh, let me just keep this job and not get in trouble. And I'd love it if there's a way that you guys in your roles, because God put you here,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
And God
Michael,
is
you have to
here.
wrap it up because your
Oh,
time's up.
totally. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Thank you, sir. Okay, next up, Stanley McDaniels.
And Jeff, as Stanley's coming, let me just talk about, you know, how much I love the work that Walter and Mike Kimbrough and Mike Kilmer do, but the passion of our staff that works in community centers.
Absolutely.
In their community. And so, I mean, obviously, Commissioner Underhill has always been supportive, and Commissioner Berry, and before you and Bender got on the board, I mean, we have transformed Brownsville, the most historic neighborhood in Escambia County. In previous boards, we're not able to get it to the level that we've gotten it to. And so, at some point, we have to raise the flag and say we have done good work in the
Absolutely.
Brownsville area.
Yeah. That community center is something else. And what they've done with the inoculations and vaccinations during the pandemic, it's been the center. It's been like the heartbeat of the county, so.
Whether it's the pandemic or whether it's the hurricane,
Yeah.
whether it's Congressman Gates coming in or Nikki Fried or the governor, I mean, it has provided a resource. I mean, people outside of Brownsville have come there to get resources. And
I
so-
did.
Yeah,
Get my
absolutely.
shot there.
Yeah, I saw you. You had your baseball hat on.
Yes, I did. Incognito, and a hoodie. You're recognized, Stanley McDaniel.
Yes, my name is Stanley McDaniels, longtime Escambia County resident. Grew up in Commissioner May's district in Montclair, and had some property in Underhill's district for a moment. Currently, I do believe I'm residing in your district, Mr. Bagash.
Fantastic.
But my question today is a story I saw on a $2.5 million grant going to a pharmaceutical company for in the Ellison Industrial Park. Is that story true? And if so, do you know who authored the grant for the people that are going to take over the Hitachi building?
I don't see that on our agenda this evening. I don't know what you're speaking of. I do know about the Hitachi building. I know they're leaving. I mean, we know about that, but are you talking about stuff that's come before the PEDC, the Economic
I
Development
think
Commission?
I saw Channel 3 run a story on a $2.5 million grant to a pharmaceutical company that's going to take over the Hitachi building.
You know, Stephen Berry, Commissioner Berry, and myself serve on that committee, and there's a number of projects. There's a number of potential folks that have looked at it, but I'm not aware of that specific thing. Commissioner Berry, are you aware of that grant?
No, sir. I mean, that's not something our board has discussed.
Right.
So
So,
maybe, I don't want to say, if they saw something on the news, I don't want to say it's not accurate, but it just may not, it just may not be something that we've taken up yet.
Okay.
So it may very well be correct,
yeah.
but it's.
We just haven't seen it yet, but when
Yeah.
it comes, I mean, obviously, feel free to come back and speak to it. I mean, do you support it? I mean, if it's bringing jobs?
I saw the story, and I was wanting to see if any of you guys could, elaborate on what's going on with the Hitachi building and who will be taking over, and who authored the grant.
If I could provide a suggestion, and maybe staff, someone from staff, Debbie, if you could get with this gentleman and provide him Scott Luth's office. If you speak with Scott Luth, he's the director of our economic development arm, Florida West, and I would recommend that you speak with him because he's got his finger on the pulse on a couple of these projects that are looking at that property and other properties, and he might know something about it. Great guy. Just give him a call. Just give him a
Great.
call. Just Debbie's my aide right there in the white sweater. If you get with her, she'll get you Scott's number.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
being
much.
here. Absolutely.
And
Okay.
feel free, if Scott doesn't respond, to call my office.
Yeah, and Jeff, that's in my district,
Oh.
I think it's the facility that's across the street
Okay.
is looking at expanding. I don't think the grant's coming from us. If there is one, I don't know. I'm not aware of us giving
Haven't heard.
any ED on that, so, but it could have been something with the BP oil money or something I don't know. I know Scott's always working on stuff. so-
Sounds like a good thing to me, though. I
Yeah.
mean, sounds good to me. Next speaker this evening, Mel Pino. Good evening, and you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Burgash. And, I want to back up what Mike Kilmer said a little bit, except I want to state the awkward truth that it's not the people, not four of the commissioners, sitting on the dais that did institute a really toxic workplace. That kind of stuff happens fast. And it went really bad for 2 years. And the funny thing is if you're really coming down here all the time, I'm noticing a spring in staff's step again, and a little bit, people are breathing easier. Things are starting to get a little bit better. I hope they continue to get better for staff. But, he's not imagining things. It was pretty hairy for staff there for a couple of years. I'm glad I hope it's getting better as I think it is. Still staffing issues, of course, but that's everywhere. The main thing that I wanted to speak to, I wanted to thank Michael Kimbrell and Walter Arrington for coming, and I'm hoping that people recognize that they're putting themselves out there as members of a task force that has not itself been real successful at outreach to the county. I have so much respect for these guys and people like Melissa Johnson, Mark Horn, Caleb is coming along. I'm really hoping at this point that the board would see fit to think about asking for a special meeting with your peers on the city council. I'm not even talking about what exactly happens with the entity of the task force, which, as I said at the city last night, isn't even recognized by the county, and sadly there are some good reasons for that. I attended my first meeting the other morning. I wouldn't go to a meeting until they made them public. I got invitations to some of the early committee meetings, and I said I'm not going because if everybody can't go, I'm not going to be there. And so attended the first one. I heard some really positive things at the advisory committee. But there's still too many marbidy undercurrents of internment, campy, diversion-y, our way or the highway, too heavy on the policing sort of stuff. And, with the Marbit stuff, it's hard enough to put lipstick on a pig. You can't gild a barnacle. There's some stuff you just got to scrape off. And so I'm really hoping that the board will see fit that this is the moment for their leadership now, for you guys to talk to the people like these guys. I was disappointed because, Ms. Bookman talked about transparency, and it seemed to be really real during the advisory committee meeting, and she was very welcoming of me speaking, and I still am appreciative of that. But after a bunch of people bagged the meeting last night at the council, where they did not say tent cities, all of a sudden there was another surprise meeting that nobody knew about this morning, not even people on the task force. So I think your leadership, gentlemen, would be welcomed, and maybe it's time to engage and it could happen in a good way.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mel. Final speaker, is there any more speakers behind this one? Okay, final speaker tonight, Kevin Wade, you're recognized. Good evening.
Good evening. Kevin Wade, 413 Southeast Boblets. So today is my birthday, and I was hoping to ask you for a birthday present. I'm one of those near Christmas babies, our birthday, Christmas, it's split it up. So I'm hoping you can bring something back together for us, okay?
Don't worry, Winterfest is coming just for you to sing you a song tonight.
Well,
right.
this involves
Yeah,
you
that's
as
right.
well, sir. It's I'm hoping that you can give us back seated minutes until at least Commissioner May comes back as chairman again to strip those words away. That's fine. I am so glad that the commission walked away from the Marbit part of the homeless task force, and I would love to see the county working again with the city in this. The city meeting last night was good and a little terrifying, but what was really boosting was how earnest the sentiment was, and the collaboration of the people in the audience as well as up on the dais of, we need to get roofs over people's heads. And we need it now. We need to do it. We're going to go ahead and take some temporary steps. We're going to take some steps that are helping out the ancillary organizations, faith-based organizations, and so on, and the way that they work together to find at least some solutions and get some heads in beds before it gets really, really cold. And I know we've already had 40 degrees, but anyways, I'm glad you walked away from the Marbet situation. And I know that with the organizations that I keep seeing showing up here, and the fact that they left their door open in ways that are exciting and promising. And I know that there were some organizations that didn't get all the way their foot in the door last night, but that door's still open. And I'm hoping that you can get to work with the city, because there's some solutions that will help no matter how we redistrict. And the reality is there's people that don't have a roof over their head everywhere. And I believe this community can work even harder at getting those roofs over heads. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else here to speak tonight? Any more speakers? Anthony? Nope. Seeing none? Oh, you want to speak? Okay, you gotta fill out a form, but go ahead and come.
I may be on the schedule for the next session, but I'm
Oh.
not able to attend the next session.
Well, we have a policy here. You have to speak to that item. You can't speak to an item on the agenda at the public forum. So
I've signed up for the public forum.
understood, but if it's for an item that's on the agenda, you have to wait until we cover that item during the agenda meeting, during the meeting. And I apologize for that, but
May I speak as an open?
if you're speaking to an item on the agenda, the answer is no. But if you'd like to wait until we convene our meeting.
Reapportionment on the agenda?
Yeah, that's yes, sir, it is. And we have a number of speakers. We have a number of speakers that are going to speak on that tonight. Thank you. That's what you want to speak about?
Yes.
Then we'll do that during the agenda when it's on the agenda.
But I'm unable to be there.
Sir, we'll do that during the meeting. It's agenda. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the whole? We're adjourned.